Hey folks, Nathan here. This is our 16th, I believe, mini Q&A episode. We did 14 of them that ended in April of 2019 and they just kind of let it die. And just recently, I've been reviving this format. Usually you'd see me standing up, you'd see more of the background behind me, but I spent the morning doing a lot of yard work, so now I just need to sit while doing these. I just did the recording of the previous mini Q&A. The way these will work is I'll record them in batches, okay? And you'll know because I'm wearing the same thing across the batch. No pun with bad batch being on this. And for those, I'll be grabbing all the questions from the same place or the same source, right? So if you've asked questions for round one, they were in a special call for questions video comments, which I will have since deleted. Those questions are being used for this round. Okay? If you want to ask questions for the next round, which you'll be able to tell has started because I'll be wearing something different, feel free to ask questions in the comments on the previous one of these or on this one here, or if there's one that follows this wearing the bad batch. Ask questions on any of the round one videos and I can use those questions on the round two videos and so on. But I will not be going back. Like when I'm doing round three, I'm not going to go back to the round one videos to look for comments. That is just way too much to try to maintain here. So this again is stuff that generally speaking is not going to be appropriate for From the Star Wars Home Video Library, which has its own Q&A episodes now. In the last episode, I answered some questions from Thomas's Musings, Gavco Bob, and Fox Pixar Media. Now we pick up with a new question from Jacob Dreamworks 921, who asks, what differences are there between the 35mm stereo, the 70mm 6-track stereo, and the mono mixes of the original trilogy? This is not something I typically follow, just so you know. I don't tend to look into differences in various theatrical iterations, particularly theatrical soundtracks for the films. So I couldn't tell you at all what the difference is between this 35mm stereo and 70mm 6-track stereo versions are of audio for any Star Wars film. That is just not something I could tell you. What I could tell you is the difference between stereo and mono. I don't know which stereo, just the most predominant, I guess, between stereo and mono, particularly for A New Hope. For Empire and Jedi, I couldn't say if there are significant differences. They weren't significant enough for me to notice if they were found on, say, Puggo's recapture of, like Empire, for instance, from 16mm or anything like that. What I can say for A New Hope is that it's just a different, it's a different sound mix for mono than it is for stereo. What you found was that there was like an original stereo mix in theaters. That's the one that was then used for the subsequent home video releases up until, basically through 85, right? Before the remixing during 85 that starts showing up at 86 with the VHS. But that original mix was missing C-3PO's tractor beam explanation line. And that was then fixed in theaters with a subsequent audio mix after realizing it was missing, but before the home video releases. But it was that earlier one that was used for the home video releases. So Ben Burt fixed that in 85. That continues forward. We get another remix for 93 with the THX Remastered Edition starting with the Definitive Collection. The line disappears again. We get the 97 mix for a special edition. The line is back and it stays there through the subsequent cuts since then. Of the other differences, though, that's more like differences in the stereo track. So the mono track always had 3PO's line correct in it. The mono track also has a slightly different performance for Beru. She just comes off as, it's almost like a higher pitch. She comes off as sort of more of a nicey nice housewife kind of voice, as opposed to the been there, done that kind of voice that you get with her in A New Hope as normal. The other big thing that stands out to me, though, as far as the differences go, is the implications of a certain line during the Battle of Yavin, right? Because in the stereo mix, and the mix that we're all familiar with, Luke has two TIE fighters, I think it's two, bearing down on, maybe it's just one. Luke has at least one TIE fighter bearing down on him, and he can't shake him, and all this kind of stuff, right? And as he's being bared down on, we know eventually that Wedge is coming to save the day because Wedge will blast his way through the TIE fighter and be like, good shooting, Wedge, good work, all that kind of stuff, right? But as Luke is being bared down upon, before Wedge can come in and save his Nerf bacon, so to speak, Luke utters the line, Blast it, Biggs, where are you? Biggs. Blast it, Biggs, where are you? Right? And Biggs, of course, is in the battle, but isn't who's about to save Luke. So it's almost like Luke being like, blast it, Biggs, where are you? You're my pal, you're my buddy, you're in this battle with me, why aren't you here to protect me? Where are you when I need you? Kind of stuff. It's like a friendship under strain kind of moment, right? But not in the mono mix. The mono mix, the line is, blast it, Wedge, where are you? He knows Wedge is the one coming to save him, he just wants him to hurry the hell up. That's not a friendship under strain thing, that's just a, I'm waiting for the person who's going to save me kind of moment. So there's that difference. If you want to check out the mono versions, track down the Pogo digitizations of the 16 millimeter reels. Those tend to be a pretty cool way to check out some of the early audio, and I believe all of those have the mono audio to them. Kind of a cool thing. But as far as anything beyond that, 35 millimeter stereo, 70 millimeter stereo, I haven't a clue. That's not my wheelhouse. It's not home video, not my wheelhouse. Let's see. Patrick Connor Entertainment asks, hey, Nathan P. Butler. Do you know if the color of a lightsaber is based on the Jedi's rank or if there's any other meaning to them? So within canon, it's the idea that it's like the Kyber crystal is influenced by the Force user who uses it, right? Who bonds with it, essentially. So the green and the blue are typical of Jedi, yellow in the case of Guardians and all, but it tends to kind of mold itself to the user, whether it's how they use the Force, how they connect to it, their perception, and it's somehow the color molds to it, as opposed to the red, which is basically the Sith forcing their will upon it, which causes it to quote-unquote bleed and become the red version we see typically used by Sith and others, where it's not so much that they're bonding as one's dominating the other. And in the past, I mean, it's tended to be, the colors represent, just what kind of crystal it is, right? Although now in canon, they primarily are Kyber crystals, not just whatever kind of crystal. But yeah, in canon at the moment, the explanation we've gotten essentially is that there's that bonding and there's that sort of shaping of the color of the crystal based on the user. But it's not necessarily a rank thing. If there's a rank thing, at least within canon, it is coincidence more than design. Okay, David Klink asks, I loved you in the cast of Republic Forces Radio Network. I still listen to old recordings all the time. Are you or any of those guys still actively doing something like that? Have you all done a group podcast since Rebels Roundtable? So we have not done anything as a group since Star Wars Reports Rebels Roundtable. I know that, Mark and I continued with Star Wars Beyond the Films for years until I retired from that fairly recently and Jim Lahane took my place. Let's see. I don't know if anybody is still actually doing anything. My guess would be if anybody is still doing anything, Jerry, Dan, Barrett, Jonathan, Jen, and so on, probably it would be that they would be doing segments of some kind for something from Finganza, like Star Wars Action News, Marvelicious Toys, or something like that. But I honestly don't know if anybody is still actively involved. I haven't really kept completely in touch with, I'll talk to Jonathan every now and then and stuff online. Same thing with Barrett. Don't tend to catch up with Dan very often or Jen very often. I will say that Jerry got a chance to come by the house, which was kind of cool a while back when he was on a trip. But it's just not a group that I've tended to keep as much in touch with, except of course for Mark. And Mark and I were together on Star Wars Beyond the Films for a significantly long time. So we still keep up. And I think I mentioned in the last one, I've got some stuff I'm going to try to send him soon to decorate some of the old Armada ships that I'm not playing the game of anymore. But yeah, we haven't really done anything in similar vein. Now, if you look on my Patreon, there is something that's just me, but it is in similar vein, sort of, which is my commentary tracks, right? So I've got commentaries for the Clone Wars. I'm almost actually done with them. I just recorded the last of the commentaries for Season 6. I will soon be recording the commentaries for Season 7, and by the middle of 2023, right around this time, I guess, of 2023, the entirety of Star Wars The Clone Wars will have every single episode with an audio commentary you can listen to that I put together. And basically the idea is, let me see if I can say this without looking at anything. I don't have it pulled up. In order to successfully align those MP3s with the episode, go ahead and start the episode, then pause it right after the Clone Wars logo fades from the screen, leaving a blank space where the episode's fortune cookie phrase is about to appear. I'll count down from 3, and I'll say play when the countdown hits 0. Hit play at that moment, and you should be able to watch right along with me. Can you tell that I've done that way too many times? And by the way, where I say a blank space where the episode's fortune cookie phrase is about to appear, the script actually says black, not blank. I started saying blank by accident early on. I've never changed it in the script. I still just say blank all the time for some reason. But yeah, like I've got audio files that you basically download and you put in, and whenever it says, we'll hit play together in 3, 2, 1, play. You hit play and you can listen, and it's me sort of doing reaction and commentary through that entire episode. And there's one of those for every episode through what's been released on the feed so far. Again, by the middle of next year, it'll be for every single episode of the Clone Wars. I also have ones already up for all 4 of the collected episodes of Forces of Destiny. I will soon be doing a set for all 9 episodes of Star Wars Visions, but I don't know when I'm going to record those just yet. But those will be coming out at some point in the near future. So if you're interested in that sort of thing, that's on the Patreon. Anybody who's at the $5 or $10 tier get access to those over on the Patreon. It's probably the closest thing to me doing anything Republic Forces Radio Network or Rebels Roundtable-esque in years. But it's not a group discussion. It's just me doing the commentaries that are designed to kind of be watched as you watch. They are produced in chronological order, though, by the way, so that can also help you get the chronological order of the series if you're trying to do a rewatch. Let's see. The Cat Drums 3 asks, what is a studio or company that you tend to buy a lot from that surprised you? I recently noticed that I've been buying a lot of Universal Studios stuff, from vinyl records of albums that they made to t-shirts/sweaters that they licensed out. Company I tend to buy a lot from that surprises me. I mean, I can't really think of much in the way of home video stuff because, like I said before, it's mostly I think on the last mini Q&A, I mostly get digital stuff now. I would say that if there's anything like that, then it's probably, for me, it's going to be like board game companies. I tend to find I've picked up a lot of stuff from Gamelin Games, Awaken Realms, All or Nothing. In fact, I think I may have bought every game that All or Nothing Productions has produced so far. Stuff like that, basically. Trying to think if there's any other companies that stand out board game-wise. I'm sure I'm going to miss somebody. Some Awaken Realms, but not all. Everything so far, I think, at least that was on Kickstarter, from Awaken Realms Lite. Stuff like that. I am a little bit surprised that I'm still picking up some Fantasy Flight stuff, but that tends to be just off and on. Like the one, I guess one that does kind of surprise me is Ravensburger. I never thought that I'd be buying much in the way of games from Ravensburger, but they put out all of the Disney Villainous, Marvel Villainous, and coming up soon, Star Wars Villainous sets, and they're the ones who did Alien: Fate of the Nostromo, and who did Horrified. Like the first one, not as big a fan of the second one. So I'm actually kind of surprised in terms of retail board games, I've bought more from Ravensburger than I ever expected that I would, if that kind of fits. But home video-wise and that kind of thing, there's just nothing really to speak of. All right, we will do one more before jumping into another of the mini Q&A episodes. So we'll have 3 in this round. This one comes from Keller Film Video Production Eiffel, who asks, what do you think about the fact that Paramount releases their exclusive online Star Trek series on DVD and Blu-ray, and the animated stuff is even airing on TV on Nickelodeon worldwide, but Disney Plus doesn't release their stuff on physical media, nor show them on normal TV? So I've addressed this previously, primarily in From the Star Wars Home Video Library Q&As, in some of the recent Q&As. So I'm not going to go heavy in depth, which is why I'm going to fit it into the end of this one as opposed to the beginning of the next one. I think it sucks. Obviously, I would love to see home video releases of Clone Wars Season 7, Bad Batch stuff, Visions, stuff for Mandalorian and the other live-action stuff, and so on and so on and so on. I do think, though, that it does make logical sense for them not to release them, because there's sort of 2 different ways you could look at this, both of which are viable alternatives. The first is to look at home video as a promotional tool for your streaming, right? Or as a last resort use of your streaming content, which is kind of what it seems like Paramount is doing, where they put out their stuff on streaming, so those who really want to watch it, they will jump in. It's their incentive to get onto the streaming platform and pay for that monthly subscription. But eventually, the assumption is that there's a diminishing returns there, where eventually not a lot of people are signing up to see last season of Discovery, for example, or to see the first season of Prodigy now, and so on. So you can then take your streaming content and use it from a promotional standpoint. Air Prodigy on Nickelodeon, and use that maybe as a hook to get some people to perhaps also sign up for Paramount Plus. Or put out season sets of the previous season or seasons of Discovery, or whatever it might be, Picard, whatever, and use that perhaps strategically in a position where you give people just enough time to pick that up and watch the previous season before you premiere the new season on your streaming platform. And use that as the hook to get people to say, well, I don't want to wait for home video for the next season. I'll jump on the streaming platform. Use it as a hook. Use it as bait, basically, to get people to jump into the streaming platform. And in that sense, I would assume that's probably a useful thing for, Paramount. The other option, though, is to do what Disney Plus is doing, which is to keep your exclusive content exclusive, where the only way people have access to watch it is through your platform. So if somebody wants to watch it, whether desperately or otherwise, if somebody wants to watch it, they can sign up. And the value proposition that changes isn't, hey, you got a chance to watch this stuff at home on physical media, now you want to jump in for the new season. It's, oh, look, we're 3 or 4 seasons into this, it's still not available on home media, but now if you sign up and binge watch, then for that month or 2 months or however much you subscribe, for that amount of money that you're spending, you're getting to watch the whole thing, right? Which, to some degree, it's kind of like the way that my Patreon works, as I was mentioning there with those commentaries, right? Like early on, if somebody signed up for the $5 or $10 tier on my Patreon, they'd be able to check out the commentaries and watch episodes of the Clone Wars with them, but they had, maybe a month worth of 2 episodes, or the next month of 2 episodes, and so on and so on. Whereas now, if someone signed up, they've got access to basically pretty much everything through near the end of season 5 or so that are available there, plus Forces of Destiny available there for just signing up for the 1 month and downloading, right? Kind of the same sort of thing, right? That, if you keep it exclusive, it means people have to come to you or they have to bootleg it, right? Have to come to you or they have to bootleg it. And the value proposition grows because over time, the bigger the library of stuff people want to watch but they can't watch some other way, makes it seem more useful, getting more utility out of actually signing up for that month or year or whatever of Disney Plus. It sucks, but it makes sense from a business standpoint, at least in one of those 2 models. They could do the other model and maybe it would work. The way that Disney is tending to get away from physical releases, or kind of moderating the amount of physical releases they have anyway, suggests to me that that's not a direction that they're going to want to go. They'd probably rather go full digital than use physical to help promote digital. The fact that they haven't even released digital versions through, say, iTunes or something of Mandalorian Season 1 and so on, I think tells you pretty much all you need to know about their perspective on digital versus physical, and when it comes to digital on their streaming platform versus anything else. They are a much more disciplined outfit when it comes to exclusivity. Is that the best approach? Is Paramount making more than, say, Disney when it comes to those releases? Are they making up for the physical production costs enough and getting new subscriptions enough to make it justified? Presumably they are, or they would stop doing it. But Disney apparently doesn't see it quite that way. All right, guys, that'll do it for the questions for this Q&A, this mini Q&A episode, part of round 1. We have 1 more episode to go in round 1 here with me wearing the Bad Batch shirt. Again, if you have questions you want on the round 2 episodes of the mini Q&As, put them in the comments on this episode, the last episode, or the next episode, any of the ones where I'm wearing the same shirt, because they're all part of round 1, and I will use some of them or all of them in the upcoming second round of mini Q&As for 2022. Thank you for your interest. May the Force be with the home video viewers and those who have questions related to other stuff. Thanks.